migraine headaches, that led to blurry vision, that led to double vision, led to all kinds of balance issues, and then it became emotionally liable. So I started having
because it was a softball being shoved into the back of my skull. Here's a morphine patch, or here's Vicodin, or here's some Percocet. We have no idea, but we don't know what's going on.
This is the biggest cause of loss of productive years of life in this country. You know, the people that have the accidents, that have the disabilities.
Like, I was very dizzy. I was pretty out of it. Like, out of one eye, it was pretty blurry. But it was one of our playoff games for like a state cup that we had for my club team. So
I think you want to get to a point where you can almost eliminate this from happening. And it's either going to come through science or it's going to come through technology.
Welcome back. Now, you've heard us talk about treatment several times today. It's important to note that today there are no FDA-approved treatments for TBI. The treatments we are talking about are treating the symptoms of the trauma, not the trauma itself. So we have a lot of work to do in the research front to find new treatments. Now, traumatic brain injuries are acquired from all major sports, including football, hockey, soccer, boxing, MMA, and others. It's much more common than you may expect. Over the last several years, research of the effects of repeated TBIs from sports has found some troubling results. A growing number of former collegiate and professional players have been diagnosed with or have suffered from a recently discovered condition known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. By now, you've seen the movie Concussion, or you've heard about the lawsuits surrounding the NFL and players. As of now, a definitive diagnosis of CTE can be made post-mortem only. And although an increasing number of former athletes are recording symptoms of CTE, we won't know if they have them until they passed away. So please welcome a former NFL defensive end, a ring wearer as an NFL Super Bowl champion, Mr. Marvin Washington.
Hey, Montel, thanks for having me.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for being here. It's so important that you help us all put this in perspective. You have been working really tirelessly with the players and former players, with the NFL, with colleges, with other people, to get the word out and to try to see if you can find a cure for CTE. Let's talk about CTE itself. First off, do you know whether or not you yourself, how many concussions did you suffer from when you were playing?
I suffered 3 known ones that I knew about, but then when I went through my medical records after I retired, I saw I suffered from 4.
Wow.
And the thing about football is the sub-concussions, the repetitive hits that you get, and you just get your bell rung and you keep going. Those are the things that add up, and it's a cumulative effect. And football players, you know, you always have that adage that you can play hurt, you can't play injured.
Right.
Well, you play through a lot of hurt, and that includes your body and your head.
No kidding. 11 years of playing in the NFL, correct?
Yes, in the trenches.
Plus college before that, right?
Of course.
So now, as you look back, I mean, you yourself, and we've had a chance to talk before, you don't feel as if you suffer from some of the symptoms of some of the other players that you've talked to and guys that you talked to yourself, right?
Well, I think it's, and other guys have this same notion that it's a genetic condition that some guys can get and some guys don't get. And I'm just lucky in the draw that I didn't get it. And to me, in the NFL and dealing with former players, Montel, there's like no middle class, because there's a lot of guys that are doing well, knock on wood, such as myself, but then there's a lot of guys that are off the grid and doing really bad and suffering from these mood and behavioral issues that come from TBI. And you can name it CTE, you can name it dementia pugilistic, but it's TBI. It's a closed head injury.
Now let's back up for just a second, because when you say a lot of guys are suffering, but do they even understand what they're suffering from?
No, they're not.
And a lot of them are in denial, right?
Of course they are. And then a lot of these guys are self-medicating themselves or get misdiagnosed, because I had another friend that he's taking Alzheimer's, pre-Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's disease. But I truly believe if you look at the mood and disorders that he's having, it's the closed head injury, no matter what name you want to call it. And so a lot of guys don't know what they're suffering from, and they're getting misdiagnosed, or they're self-medicating themselves, be it with alcohol or worse than that, to me, in my opinion, is the prescription drug.
A lot of guys come to you. They tell you what's going on in their life because they're looking for you for answers.
Yes.
Let me slow you down a little bit. Talk to me about some of the symptoms that some of your guys are reporting to you? Now, you guys who have retired, they're out of the league. Let's talk about them first. But talk about some of the symptoms. How does a guy even stop to think for a second, maybe I do have CTE, maybe I do have a concussive injury going on and I've never even thought about it. What's going on? What do you think?
It comes through the guys themselves, and a lot of times it comes through their family members because they notice it. Because the guys think they're okay, but being depressed, anxiety,
lots of anxiety,
a lack of sleep, impulse control, addictive personality, all these comes out, manifested itself all through these mood and behavior symptoms, and then you take a big picture of it, and it comes out that they do have this closed head injury.
How about physical manifestations? How about any guys complain about balance problems? Any light seizure disorders? Any guys complain about that kind of thing too?
Of course. Not only balance problems, but mobility problems.
Okay, let's talk about it.
And you see guys that are in their early 40s, early 50s, mid 40s, and they're having problems walking. You see them with canes. You see them having trouble getting upstairs or even standing up and walking because their equilibrium is off.
Watch this, what's crazy. Last year or 2 years ago, I went to the Super Bowl. Went again the year before that. And, you know, of course, I get to go in the areas where a lot of people don't get to go. So I'm in a lot of the rooms, I'm in a lot of the suites. And every single suite I walked into, I'm telling you, I would walk in and I would see 1, 2, 3 former football players. Hey, dude, come here, Montel, you know what I mean, so-and-so. Yeah. And I'd walk over to them, and each one of them, because I'm so conscious about my own disability with MS, unfortunately, I look at people and I watch their bodies, and I watch each one of these guys come over to me, and each one of them is showing a little bit of Parkinson's syndrome kind of a shake, or just a little off balance, or I see them, they put their hand on the shoulder of somebody else doing the same thing I do to disguise the fact that they're not walking well.
And try to balance themselves.
Try to balance themselves on somebody else. I'm telling you, it was almost, it saddened me because these are some of my heroes too, guys that I'm meeting from 5 or 6, 7 years ago playing in the NFL, guys that, you just hit it, aren't that old, they're not even my age.
But see, the thing is, Montel, these guys think it come from playing football, cumulative effect, and it's orthopedic. But it's not sometimes. You know, it's coming from the condition that they have in their brain that they don't even know that they have. And so they take it off, oh, I had this, you know, I've had surgery on my lower bottom. I've had ligaments put back together. I have tendons reattached, and I don't have a balance issues like some of these guys do. They didn't even have surgeries, but they just think it's about the cumulative effect
of their physical damage.
Of course.
Right.
They don't put it together.
Right.
And the thing is that, you know, I don't want to compare football players to veterans and what have you, but there needs to be some help out there for these guys because they deserve it, you know, because they sacrifice, and it takes a lot of sacrifice to make it to college and professional level, and there needs to be some treatment out there for these symptoms that they're suffering from.
And I think not only is it when we say treatment, but there's just got to be a better understanding of what it is we are doing. I mean, even though we know that the multiple TBIs can lead to the condition as in CTE, which then becomes a degenerative brain disease, we still have people figuring out, well, I'm gonna make it a little less dangerous for me to get a TBI. Wait a minute, does something sound stupid about that? I know I'm gonna get one, let me just see if I can make it a little less, less of one?
I know, and I say, you know, guys in my era and whatever, we played in the dark ages. There was no concussion protocol, there was no baseline tests or anything like that, but I don't think you can mitigate it and make it less. I think you want to get to a point where you can almost eliminate this from happening, and it's either going to come through science or it's going to come through technology. And a lot of the science that's going on, they're trying to connect the dots between concussions or the closed head injuries and TBI and CTE, but what about the treatment of the symptoms? Because there's 3,600 current active NFL players, but there's 20,000 former players.
Right.
But if you take that with the number of former college players, high school players, and the second highest incidence of concussion is girls soccer.
Right.
So there are a lot of people that are in these contact sports that need treatment, and they don't play in the NFL.
I want to come back to the NFL guys for one more second and ask this question. How worried? I mean, you get to hang out with these guys from time to time. So this coming Saturday at dinner. Will the conversation come up? Will somebody say something about being worried about what's happened? How often do you hear this in a conversation?
Since I've had this platform for the past, I say 26, 24 months, it comes up all the time. Last summer, I was having dinner with a Hall of Famer, and you would know who he is, and you can't tell the story of the NFL without him. And I was asking him, well, how are you doing? And he was adamant that he was okay, but you should have seen the look on his wife's face. And every time I talk to him, he loses a little bit off of his fastball. Not that I see him a lot, I see him maybe once or twice a year, but it seems like he's losing a little bit off of his fastball. And the thing that stops guys from recognizing or even getting treatment, Montel, is pride. You know, you knew who you were when you played football, and you felt like you were invincible. And this is with, you know, soldiers too. You want to feel like you're a man. You want to feel like you can walk this off and get through it. And a lot of guys don't reach out for help, and they're suffering in silence. And not only them, but their families. You know, so there needs to be some treatment out there for guys to get help, and so they can live and have a quality of life that I think they deserve.
We'll take a little break. We'll be back right after this. As you've heard from our guests, traumatic brain injury can cause many symptoms, including balance disorders. The only way we're going to be able to learn if treatments work to address these symptoms is through scientific clinical trial. If you, a family member, or a friend have chronic balance disorder that is a result of a mild or moderate traumatic brain injury due to sports, military service, slips, trips, or falls, they may be eligible to participate in a clinical trial for an investigational device being developed to treat balance disorder. Please visit braininjurytrial.com/livingwell or call 1-877-847-4290 for more information.